share with me and get to know me.
Working within it so that you can trust
You got
them.
to be able to produce things. And I'll tell you why that production is so important. But before we go there, how do you use those two pieces of equipment? And
success is not necessarily financial, but success is when you feel fulfilled in what you're doing. And then
to other women, they need to know their value, their worth.
But I believe everything that you put your mind to and you achieve, it's success.
Give us all the stuff.
Okay, I'll answer all 16 of those questions right now. I started in the music business at Sony while I was still...
Show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, today's guest is truly amazing. Our guest is a recovering overachiever who overcompensated financially after living with a mother who struggled financially after a divorce. She describes her childhood home as one that pretended tough subjects didn't exist. Her drive to succeed, curiosity, and astonishing ability to problem solve helped propel her success in financial services, winning awards and often being the only woman leader in the room. She started Utor Wealth after tiring of long-winded meetings and overemphasis on products and sales quotas. Utor is Latin for to use, to employ, to enjoy. Our guest believes that every dollar we touch and how we send it out into the world is shaping both the world we live in and the one we aspire to. Every woman deserves to do it intentionally and with confidence. That is exactly how she helps her clients. Y'all, join with me in welcoming Jen Sapel.
Hi. I'm happy
and how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I am fantastic. It is so amazing to meet you. Like, I know we're not like live face to face, but this is about as face to face as we can get. And I am like beyond excited. Can you tell?
Oh, good. That's the best way to start.
Well, I love this topic that we're talking about, finances. Mm-hmm. Some people call it a taboo topic. Mm-hmm. I call it one of those things that you need to know if you're going to ever achieve anything in your life. Like, honestly.
Agreed.
Money is impactful. Mm-hmm. Some people say, oh, rich people are terrible. Mm-hmm. Well, I would like to be able to prove them wrong. Okay, so let me
tell you. Yeah, I've met plenty of lovely human beings who are wealthy. So
right. But if you grow up in a family in a state of lack, mm-hmm. then and you're told all these things, I wonder if maybe sometimes our parents told us having money or being wealthy was bad to make themselves feel better. Maybe sometimes.
I don't know. There's a lot of just general shame around money. So we have kind of culturally tied morality to money. And so there is a lot of like, if you're wealthy, you worked a lot harder, or you're a better person, or you're a worse person. And same if you're not, if you don't have money. So we culturally have a lot of just baggage around the topic of money.
Facts. I mean, that was like 100%. So Jen, tell us a little bit about you and your journey and what motivated you to pursue a career in financial services.
Yeah. Financial services found me more than I was driven to it. As your intro says, My parents got divorced when I was 10, and life before divorce and life after divorce was different in terms of financial comfort. And watching my mom struggle after divorce, I was like, nope, not going to do that. Just not.
Right.
I won't ever depend on another person financially. Plus, I'm a firstborn daughter, and I was generally an overachiever. So anything I did, I had to be the best at it. I had to do really well. So my first full-time job, I was living on one paycheck. I was getting paid twice a month, and I was living on one paycheck, and I was just sticking the other check in the savings account. Again, coming from a place of fear.
So you knew to do that kind of like as your own safety blanket, that from the experience you had growing up and watching your mom struggle at 10 and telling yourself, this will never be my story.
Yeah.
And the way you decided that this was never going to be your story is that you made up in your mind, you're going to live on one paycheck and save the other.
Yeah, I had help, right? We all have help. We all get help and need help along the way. I did. I came from that place of fear, and I was like, I want to do something better. And I was generally like super responsible. The 50, like living on one paycheck and putting the other paycheck in a savings account was a tip actually from a boyfriend. Like, I don't know, I was 18 or 19, and he worked at a bank, and he was like, yeah, the wealthiest people I see at the bank, they don't make a lot of money. They just save a lot. So he was like, so I try really hard to live on one paycheck and save the other paycheck. And I'm like, I looked at my budget and I was like, shoot, I can do that.
Wow, that is so smart. And how lucky are you to have that person in your life to tell you that at 18? Because I heard those exact same words, like live on one paycheck and save the other, after I married my husband.
Yeah.
So right. I'm good and grown, kids gone and everything before I heard that wisdom.
Right.
So
right. That's a great tip for any parents listening. The time to start talking to kids about money is when they're 3 or 4 or 5 years old. And not from, not a fear-based thing, not just like a matter of fact, just like you talk about a toothbrush, just like you talk about, putting your shoes on or things like that. Same thing. You get $1. When you get $1, what you do with it, we have 3 jars. Some of it goes in the spend jar, some of it goes in the save jar, and some of it goes in the share jar.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so we have a lot of women who watch this show, and a lot of them have small children. And so I'm starting at 3 or 5. That seems early, but I'm old school.
If you haven't, that's fine.
But I'm willing to learn new things and share with our audience. So because it's never too late. I mean, even if you didn't start at 3 or 5, it's never too late, because I have 18-year-old grandkids, and they're still trying to figure this thing out. And I'm just like, okay, so let me help you. Figure out what to do so that you can sustain yourself and live.
Yes, I love it. I think I totally agree with you. It's never too late to start. 3 and 5 is, at the time that they have language, you're naming everything else in the house, right? That's a desk, that's a chair, that's the floor, that's the carpet, right? They're gaining language. They should start to gain language around money too. That's a dollar bill, that's a quarter, right? They don't have to know anything more than that, just to be able to identify it and start to build language around it.
And then the quarters don't go in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Ever.
They're dirty.
I had to do that with my 3-year-old just yesterday. Only food in your mouth, bud. Only food. So gross. Oh man, so gross.
Exactly.
And then the easiest thing with kids is, this is what we do with money, right? It's just like, okay, now we've named it. Then the next thing is, this is what we do with it. And it's, if you can start young, and even if you start at 18, that's okay. There's only a few things you can do with money. Like it's not, it's like, there's only a few things you can do with a car. So with kids, again, with my kids, they have the jars, and it's like, every dollar that comes in when they get birthday cards from their Aunt Judy and they have a $5 bill in it, we take turns putting it in one of the 3 jars. If it's like 5 $1 bills, then we put $1 in each jar. And then they get to decide, where do you want to put the other two things? But they start to gather that like, oh, this is what we do with money. And, there's two main things we can do with it. We can save it. We can spend it.
Right.
That applies to 18-year-olds too.
I love it. I love it. So we can save it, spend it, and tell me
share.
Share. Why would that one not stick in my head?
Yeah.
And I
for
love
my kids, and for your 18-year-olds, you'll layer in on top of that, invest. You can invest it. Yeah.
Okay. And is that a part of the sharing, or is that in addition to the sharing?
So you could start with 2 jars, then it's 3 jars. Ultimately, there's only 5 things you can do with money.
Okay.
You earn it.
Okay.
You save it.
Save it.
You invest it.
Uh-huh.
Give it away. Or spend it.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That seems. I mean, that's pretty basic. I can do that. I follow that. That makes perfect sense. So we need 5 buckets.
Yeah, and I think that you could start with 2 and work your way up to 5. And I think if you're an adult listening today, and you're like, if you feel like I'm not good with money, those 5 things, like there's skill sets in all 5 of those things. Just pick one and start to get better at one, and then start to get better at a different one, and start to get better at a different one.
Right. Exactly. Because I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? Yeah. And a lot of this has to do with mindset and the relationship you have with money and what you believe about money, or what money is supposed to be for, or what it can or can't do. And so I think that's a whole nother mental roadblock that some people may have to overcome at certain points, because of the stories they told themselves when they were younger, or what they experienced growing up, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I love the way you said that. The stories you tell yourself. I think society has a lot of stories that they like to tell us about money. And then there's stories that come from within, or from our families, or from however we feel about money. And the thing that's been most helpful for me, I mean, I've now, having been a financial advisor for 20 years, I feel like I'm still in constant pursuit of the money story, and revising my money story, and learning more about the money story, and the way I show up in the world, and the way I utilize my money in the world. But the things that really have been the most impactful for me is that what we've done culturally is we've made money kind of the object and like the end goal. So because of that, we were very confused. And we're like, oh, I want to have a lot of money. I want to be financially secure, all of those things.
Right.
It isn't really money, the end game that we really want, right? Like if you ask, if I have a lot of money, what does that mean? For me, coming from a fear, it meant not having to worry about paying bills, not having to worry about buying groceries. But if you ask me today, like, what does having enough money mean? Like, oh, it's this lifestyle that I can describe, very succinctly. My family and I live here. We have these options. We can go to these schools. So it isn't the money, it's what the money can provide. It's the value that we use that money for. So I like to, the more I allow for money just being, it's that intermediary, it's that thing in the middle between what I have now and what I really desire, the lifestyle I really desire, or the options that I desire. Money's just that middle thing. It's not the end.
It's like the means to the end.
Yeah.
And as long as it's the means to the end, then I think there's a lot of value in what you just said, that it doesn't have to be the be all end all. It's just the thing that gets you to where you want to be and where you want to go.
It's a resource.
Yes.
Like air is a resource, water is a resource, right? It's a resource that helps you measure what you value. So it's the thing that you value at the other end. It's the thing that you value that really you're ultimately going for. And I think that's where, so much of our financial confusion comes from, because you go for financial advice and you're just talking about that advice, that of the thing in the middle between where you are and what you're trying to get. Like the money is just the resource. So we can talk about all the resource things, but the clearer you are on what value you want out of that resource, then the easier it is to answer all of those questions about the resource.
Right. Yes, absolutely. It's a resource that helps you measure what you value.
Yes.
I love how you put that. And that's why it's here in quotes. Because that is so good.
All right, we're tracking.
Yes.
I'm not being, I know like it's really pie in the sky, right? It's like, it's another way to think about money, but that's my my latest iteration, right? After 20 years of this journey, and has been the most helpful.
Yeah, because it makes the most sense. I mean, it absolutely, because if you value something, like I gave an experience, I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was sharing an experience in my own life where my son was 13 years old and he was in his advanced art class, and the teacher presented him with an opportunity to go to Italy with the advanced art class to learn all about the works of Michelangelo and Da Vinci and all of the guys and Italian culture and all of that. He's 13 years old. And he comes home and I see the paper on the table. Like he had no intention of giving it to me. And I said, "What's this?" He said, "Oh, Miss, I can't even remember what her name is. We'll call her Miss Brown. Miss Brown gave that to us. She's taken the advanced art class to Italy." And I was like, "Wow, that's exciting. Do you want to go?" And he was like, "Mom, it's Italy." And the way he said that was like, you're a single mom. How on earth could we ever get to Italy? You know, like there's absolutely no way on earth that this could ever happen.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Do you want to go or not?"
Good for you, Mom.
And he was like, "Well, yeah, but and I was like, "Well, fine." And I signed the paper. I said, "Here, give it back to your teacher." And on it was, a date for a deposit. I think the deposit was like $100 or whatever to save your seat. And then they gave you some time to save up and put in the rest of the second payment, third payment. Maybe it was 4 payments. I don't know what it was. Anyways, I marked my calendar and I started numbering the days backwards to the trip in a calendar that we could see, and we would cross off each day. And having that vision in my head of what needed to be done helped me dictate where my money went.
Yeah.
Because best believe we didn't go out to eat nearly as much. Yeah. We didn't, go shopping and buy clothes and shoes. And no, we cut all that out because our money was now having a plan and a purpose to get us to Italy. So
and you decided in that time frame, you valued that trip to Italy more than the trips going out to eat, leading up to those dates. Yeah,
absolutely. And it was a sacrifice, of course, but it was worth it. It was totally worth it because within that time, we started talking about investing. He's 13, and how we wanted our money to work for us while we didn't have, while we weren't working. And so there was a platform out called buyandhold.com. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No, but I like the
name. My son is like 36 now, but anyways. So buyandhold.com was a platform. I can't remember who bought it out, but Ameritrade or something. Anyways, it was one of those things you could actually buy a stock and own it, hold it and whatever, and let it do its thing. And earning interest and all of that, and the stock market or bonds or whatever it was. And so he had become interested in that. And so he made some picks for us and we invested a few dollars in some things. One of his picks turned out to be a really great one. And we ended up being able to save money through that investment to help us fund our spending money for the trip. Yes. So, I mean, it was a really fantastic learning experience for both of us to see money working for us, and we didn't have to actually be out there. It was in addition to our bake sale money. We were doing our little fundraising, getting our hustle on, doing what we had to do to make the ends meet so that we could have these amazing 10 days in Italy with his advanced art class. So.
Love it. What a fabulous story. Nailed it, Mom. Yeah, like you did all of the things in there. You did a bake sale, so you earned money in there. You saved money up. You did some budgeting in there, and you invested. The only thing you didn't do in that story that like is related to money is gifting, right? Unless we consider him getting spending money the gifting, but
right, exactly. And then we gave it away to the people who were organizing the trip.
Yeah. I love it.
It was ACIS. It was a great trip. They don't pay me to say that, but I'm just saying. If any listener has any kid in school and ACIS is planning trips for you, definitely
it was a good experience
for your kid. You let them go.
Yeah, beautiful.
For sure. So, Jen, what would you say though to people who are, listeners who may be struggling financially and they have some financial stress? How can they save or deal with the uncertainty in their lives? If they're already financially not making ends meet, how do they get out of that and be able to see above water? To not be so stressed.
Yeah. So there's like I have two different answers for that. If you feel like you're underwater and stressed and can't make ends meet, the reality might be that that's true. The reality might be that for you to pay for rent or your mortgage and food and all of the basic, monthly needs that we have and annual needs, you might not be earning enough for those. And if you're in that situation where you're earning less than what you need on a monthly basis, then the only thing to do is to earn more. I mean, unless you can like really reduce your expenses, but there's a lot of financial advice out there that really wants you to like budget your way out of being financially stressed month to month. And you can't do that. You can't budget your way out of not making enough money. So if like basic needs, rent and food and that kind of thing, if you're not making it month to month, you have to earn more money. And I believe that every human deserves, if you're working full time, you deserve to be able to live comfortably and pay all of your bills if you're working full time. So if you're working a job that isn't paying you enough, you've got to find a different job, or you've got to find a way to get a raise or, move where cost of living is, and I know that like moving is impossible for a lot of people, but you have to find a way where you're earning enough where you can pay bills on a regular basis. I imagine that could be part of your audience. I imagine not the majority of your audience is in that camp. I do just want to be really clear. Like you can't budget your way out of under earning. But for a lot of people, you feel underwater, but you are earning enough. You're just not being intentional about where that money is going on a month-to-month basis or a day-to-day basis. And for those people, I think the first step to financial security and financial confidence is just paying attention. And I know in the times of my life and in growing up in my house where money was super stressful, what you tend to do if you're in a fear mode, if your body is physically afraid, is you do, fear-based behaviors like run away or freeze, right? Put your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So money,
I can relate to that.
Yeah. I don't know any, I can't think, and if you can think of one, let me know. But I rack my brain on this question all the time. Like I can't think of a fear-based decision that's a good financial decision. We just don't. And we don't, I mean, biologically, when we're in our brains in that place of fear, our executive function shuts off. And executive function is where good money decisions come from. So if you're feeling really stressed and fearful, you've got to get out of that first before you start addressing your money. There's a good book called Burnout by the Nagoski twins. I really recommend that for like, how do you get out of that kind of mode of living? Okay. But then you got to start paying attention. And the first thing is you've got to spend less than you make on a month-to-month basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of ways to do that. Go ahead.
No, as I was saying, that makes sense. You have to spend less than what you make. I mean, because if you're trying to spend more, then that usually means you're dipping into credit cards, which it doesn't belong to you. It's not your money.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're living above your means.
Yeah. And if you can make financial decisions today that like honor your past self, that honor your today self, and then that honor your future self. If you're every month putting things on credit cards, what you're doing is you're stealing from your future, and you're constantly having to pay for your past self. So like with every paycheck, you're like, oh, I'm still paying for my past self. I'm still paying for my past self. And it's hard to catch up if a lot of your money is going to that, those past financial decisions. Right. And then like getting your hands around cash flow, what I've seen work best for everybody is just paying closer attention. For most people, just paying attention to it is enough. Right. For most people, they're like, I just don't know where my money's going. I don't like the subject. It feels icky. So I just don't, if there's money in the bank, I spend it. And, 2 weeks from now, I didn't realize that I had this bill coming up. And so now I'm putting on a credit card. They're just not paying attention. You just add paying attention to it, that stops it. That's not true for everybody, but that's true for a lot of people. Right.
I mean, if you even count like those expensive coffees that we can tend to get and how quickly those can add up, or if people have other, habits like, smoking cigarettes or, whatever, these things, if we cut those things out, then that adds a whole lot. Or even getting our nails done. When I used to go get my nails done, it was like $75 every single time. Yeah. And that adds up. That really adds up. It was more than just nails, but I'm just saying, when you go to the salon, those things that are luxuries or pampering kind of things, as nice as they are, if you're not making ends meet, those are not things that you should be, I don't think, spending your money on.
Yeah. And with those, I haven't seen somebody, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that did stop the coffee thing. With those things though, again, once you start paying attention, you'll notice like, oh, I can do a coffee every day, but like if I drop these 2 subscriptions that I don't use at all, that I haven't been paying attention to, right? That gets me to where I need to be. Or even like with dining out, ordering a cocktail with your meal, like that gets expensive. So if you have your cocktail at home and then go out and have the meal without the cocktail, depending on where you're living, right? But,
right. Make sure Uber's on the way taking you.
Yeah. And one of the best tips I heard, and this helped for me because I used to get my nails done once a month. And the pandemic just stopped that habit for me. And now that it's stopped, I'm just like, oh, I don't really enjoy it as much as I used to. But I read something once that was like, what is that giving you? So for me, the getting my nails done was less about having nice nails. And it was more about just having an hour to myself where there's no demands on me. I could just sit in peace and quiet. I could listen to music or whatever the case was. So once I knew that's what I was really valuing out of getting my nails done, like then I can have an hour that does the same thing, but doesn't cost as much.
Exactly. Oh, that's so good. So good. And so you have to figure out how you can still do self-care, because to me that's self-care.
Yeah.
And not have it cost you. Yeah. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Honestly.
Well, you can. And if you look at every expense as how much do I value this? What was the value I got out of this? And how much value did I get out of it? So like every dollar you're giving, like, here's the dollar. What am I getting in exchange? And for coffee, for a lot of people, that's like a morning ritual. It's a time of, peace and whatever. Like, I don't want to give that up. But for this dollar over here I'm spending, like, I'm not getting a lot of value out of that dollar. So I'm either going to save or invest that for my future self, or I'm going to spend it differently.
Right. Exactly. That's so smart. So smart. And even like, I love how you said that even cutting some subscriptions, like is it really necessary for you to not to have commercials on Spotify for $10 or whatever it costs, or whatever those music things are? Or
do I need Netflix, Disney, Spotify, Amazon Prime, right? And Apple TV? Like, I really only watch 2 of those things. I don't watch all of them. Probably don't need all of them. Yeah.
Exactly. So in the last few minutes that we have together, Jen, this has been so great that I don't even think I've gotten to half my questions that I wanted to ask you. This conversation has been so
as long as it's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it truly is. And it's so relatable. It truly is. So I have a surprise for our listeners. So before we go, I want to share something that's super exciting with you and with our listeners, that we've got even more amazing content with Jen Sapel over on 100 TV Network, where she will share exclusive golden nuggets with us. On 100 TV Network, it shows every Tuesday starting in June at 12 o'clock noon. And it's chock full of extra interview questions, behind the scenes stories, and all kinds of inspiration and empowerment to keep you going throughout the week. So be sure to mark your calendar starting in June. In addition to Renee Speaks, we now have Renee Speaks Golden Nuggets only on 100 TV Network. So Jen, as we get ready to grab our drinks and get ready to head to the green room and enjoy a cocktail, how would you like to wrap us up for this show? How can we get in touch with you, learn more, all of the great things?
Sure. Thank you first for having me and for listening. I hope that this was helpful. You can find me at utorwealth.com. That's UTOR, utorwealth.com. I do complimentary consultations, 20 minutes for anybody, for anything. So we may not be a good fit, and that is fine. I'm happy to point you in the right direction, whether or not you end up working with us. We do offer 2 services, though. One is comprehensive financial planning. The other is investment management.
Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you so much. And that's a wrap for Renee Speaks, and I'll see you in the green room.
Find a mentor.
It's like a multi-million-dollar business of your journey.
Moments in time.
We can make an impact one
A little bit better.
When it comes to launch, feel fulfilled, you were made for something great. So go and be awesome.